4.14. This is figure 4.14. It says visualization of linear static analysis from the southeast, showing the building tipping to the southeast after the hypothetical failure of columns 76 to 81. This is, I think, 4 columns over here.
No, this analysis doesn't have 4 columns being removed. It has 6 columns being removed. But just to check, here's the PDF that Mick's working from, and this is the analysis that he's looking at, and it is the linear static analysis of columns 76 to 81. And if you look there, there are actually 6 columns being removed in the analysis that Mick's talking about, not 4.
Now, this says linear static analysis. Now, I've already discussed why linear analysis really isn't appropriate. You want a nonlinear response, especially if you're doing things like stretching out columns, which we wouldn't really do.
So, just to recap, the analysis that Mick is looking at here is in SAP 2000, and what we're doing is we're removing core columns and calculating the resultant demand capacity ratio in the remaining columns once the set of columns has been removed. And what you can see is that this paper actually says the exact opposite of what Mick West states. Mick has read this paper, he's read it from beginning to end, he's read it all, so he's read this bit, and he still thinks that despite this, somehow he's correct in saying that a linear static analysis is not the correct type of analysis to use for the removal of core columns in SAP 2000. This, you can see it here, a standard analysis procedure in SAP 2000, and it is actually specifically for this type of analysis. This one's actually for concrete, this study, but the analysis is the same.
But it's a static analysis, and static analysis you use when things don't really move very much. You know, things kind of settle, you see things settling, but when a building is starting to tip over, then the momentum of the building itself will come into play. The momentum of the movement of the columns impacting other columns will come into play. This is when you do static analysis, it's like this really, really gradual thing. You kind of let it settle a bit, and then you would run the simulation again. You let it settle a little bit more, then you run the simulation.
At this point, it's difficult to know just exactly where to start. Mick is looking at a visualization. He's referring to it as an analysis, and he's treating it as if it was an analysis, but he hasn't yet actually shown the analysis, or apparently hasn't looked at the analysis, and he certainly hasn't understood the analysis, and he's not looked at the manual for SAP 2000, which is the program that the analysis is run on either.
Again, you ignore time, and you ignore momentum, and you ignore like collisions and the momentum of those collisions between objects. So,
and I'm not even going there.
In a situation like this, with a building tipping over to the side, I don't think that static analysis is really a very appropriate thing.
So yeah, again, Mick is looking at a visualization, and he's referring to it again as an analysis. It's marked as a visualization. The sheets and the pages just before it are marked as an analysis for the analysis that he's talking about here. It's ridiculous, really.
And linear static analysis really isn't at all, because you're going to expect all kinds of deformation here, which is going to completely change the linear response.
And just an update, Mick is still looking at a visualization, and he's still not actually looked at the analysis that he's talking about.
Yeah, big thing here obviously is these columns here appear to have been stretched out to about 3 times their natural length, which of course is impossible.
And there you have it. If Mick has read this report, the analysis that he is talking about, then he certainly hasn't taken it in. He's continuing to look at a visualization and not looking at the analysis that visualization represents.
And he can suggest that he's just using a kind of a linear spring for the columns in the back, which is a bit inappropriate, I think, and wrong, I think, in many, just basically wrong. This
now accusing Professor Halsey of being inappropriate or wrong is it's not genius. But what is genius is being able to look at a visualization of an analysis and somehow being able to tell exactly what kind of element was used. That is genius. I would like you to explain that process, please, Mick, in great detail.
This carries on to figure 4.15, which is the same type of thing. It's even more dramatic here. You can see these columns stretching out here, and then there's this kind of weird deformation here.
And it's not going to get any better from here on in, because when you've made that kind of mistake right at the foundation of your understanding of a topic, by the time you reach up a few stories, especially 47 stories in that topic, you'll find that you're a mile out. So I didn't have time to point them all out to you, but I hope this has helped in pointing out some of the errors that you made in question 2.